There's a quote making the rounds that says, you won't lose your job to AI, you'll lose your job to someone using AI. And the premise, of course, being that the technology itself won't necessarily replace people, but the people who know how to use the technology could end up replacing the people who don't know how to use the technology. So enter the rise of the prompt engineer. My guest today is a certified prompt engineer who has found ways to apply those skills to her growing voiceover business. And she's going to help us do the same so that hopefully we will never have to bow to our robot overlords. Welcome to the show, Donna Vincent Roa.
Hi, glad to be here and share all the exciting things that I've been doing with AI and fun things that we can apply to our VO work.
I got to tell you, this is probably a little bit of a selfish episode because it's a subject that I am definitely interested in myself and have been playing around with and learning a little bit more of myself. So, I mean, personally, I'm very much looking forward to having the opportunity to ask you some questions. But I know that it's going to be good for everybody who's listening. But there's one thing I want to talk about before we get into all of that fun stuff. You've done something that I dream about doing, and I want to hear about it. Traveling to 50 countries. Absolutely incredible. So, couple of questions. First, why? Work, pleasure, both. And let's go with top 3 that you visited.
Top 3, I'll start with that. I would have to say Philippines first because that's where I met my husband, and he probably, if he heard this episode, would not be happy if I put it as number 3. Number 2 would be Portugal.
Okay.
Porto is my favorite place. It's the most friendly city in the world. The people, the way they treat you, the way they interact with you, it's awesome. And then the third one, I have very fond memories of Lima, Peru,
Okay.
where I was invited to Peru to give the keynote address to the first graduating class of social marketers at Cajamarca University. So those are my top 3. And I would say the bulk of the 50 happened primarily because of work. My field is international development.
Okay.
My expertise is in international branding or branding international organizations. And I've had a chance to work on USAID funded projects that take me all over the world. I recently was in Dominican Republic where I worked on a turnaround project for an organization that was failing, and I had a chance to stay with them for almost a month and look at what was wrong and, come up with solutions. So I've been running most recently an incubator and an accelerator where we service organizations all over the world and we have a chance to go and visit. And so I would say the bulk of the 50 is related to work, but I also travel lots of cruises and go to other countries.
What was your best tip for surviving the crossing of the time zones?
Oh, wow. Don't drink wine on the plane. Try to stay up and bathe yourself in sunlight when you arrive to the new location and
There you
try
go.
to only take a small nap so that you'll go back to regular sleeping.
Gotcha. Cool. Oh man, that's one of the things that I would love to be able to visit more places and see this amazing world that's out there. There's a lot more to see beyond what we have here in North America, as it were. But I read that in when I was doing some of the research, and I was like, oh, I got to ask her about that. I'm very curious about that. So before we dive too deeply into prompt engineering specifically as it applies to voice actors and how we can use this, give us a general overview of what a prompt engineer is.
Yeah, it's someone that can take an idea and formulate it into a script that will inform the AI bot. So it could start with something very simple. You can say something as simple as make this better. So if you have a paragraph in something you're writing, you can put it in there and say make this better. That's at the very bottom end of the
Yeah.
spectrum. And if you look at the top end of the spectrum, I've been the author of 1,200 word prompts that was tested over a period of about 4 hours,
Wow.
where I would evaluate the output and then make a decision on what kind of tweaking would need to be done to be able to get the right output. And so that would be your continuum. Make this better, and a 1,200 word prompt. I would say that that one was the longest one I've ever written, but it was a very purposeful one, and it had details that I wanted it to represent in the final output. And so I spent a bunch of time refining it. So there's a model called prompt, prime, and polish. And in the right end of the continuum, that's when you want to establish a prompt, do a bunch of testing on it to make sure that the output is what you want, and
Right.
then continue to refine it so that it will yield what you're seeking in the output.
I think that's probably been the most interesting part for me is just, as you start to play around with it, you don't know. So you just ask it a question, right? You ask ChatGPT a question and see what it spits out. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, well, that's it. I asked it a question, it gave me an answer. You don't realize that you can then refine that question or add details to that question. And so I find myself at times using these tools where I literally do feel like I'm having a conversation with someone who's not, technically there, but who is, because I type and we kind of work through it together in a very conversational way. And that's building the prompt, I guess, and it's something that a lot of people don't understand that you can do, that it's not just ask a question, get an answer. It's, ask a question, revise the question again, tweak the parameters of the question or whatever. And that's been a really fascinating part of all of this for me, is learning that.
Yeah, what I'd like to mention here, Mark, is how do we view AI? I think our mindset about what it is, there are about 4 different points I want to cover. And one is looking at AI as an assistant
Hmm.
first.
Yes.
The second is looking at it as a brain that you can tap into
Yep.
because it's a wealth of information. And if you go down the brain route, well, assistant route, we can talk about those details later. But if you go down the brain route and you see AI as a brain, you can use it to test ideas. I'll give you an example. Recently, I wrote down an idea called Digital Art Show. Random idea that I
Okay.
received,
Yep.
and I put it in, and I started having, like you're saying, the conversation. I wanted to understand, what is it? What can I do with it? How do I do it? What does it mean? And so I tapped into it as the brain. And then the other area is for you to test out ideas. I met with someone
Yeah.
yesterday, just as an example, and they were looking to upgrade their headshots. All of us have headshots.
Hmm.
And so what they tried to do was to talk to Chat GPT. Actually, it's Firefly, the one that they're using.
Yep.
And they're saying, here is the style, here is the artist, but I want you to have the artist go to Japan. And if he were to partner with somebody else, what kind of art would he come up with? And oh, by the way, can you make it like this particular game? And the output was just stupendous. It was beautiful. And so they're able to talk and refine and build on what's there.
Yeah.
You can use it as a challenge opportunity if you want to test ideas on the validity, or you can challenge it to give you ideas if you're trying to start something. And then obviously there are technical platforms beyond ChatGPT if you want to clone your voice, for
Sure.
example, or anything, sort of very basic. It's super hard to keep up with everything. And I would
Yes, it
say that
is.
in order to keep up, you have to be a learner.
Yep.
And so that's the kind of mindset that you have to bring to the table. And I'll also say that whatever AI tool that you tap into, it's never perfect.
Hmm. Yep.
Never. And I
Yeah.
always say that if you get a 75% draft of something, especially on those longer prompts, you've done well.
Yeah.
On the make this better, those are kind of low stakes requests that you could do with AI. And it's, I see it as another Donna. It's like, help me, Donna. It's another brain that I'm tapping into. And I think I provided you with a list of, I don't know, 50 different kinds of things that I do with it. But yeah, long answer, but important question, because I think how we view AI is an important part of our attaching ourselves to it and maximizing what's there. And the one thing I would tell you is about mindset is I don't want to be left behind. And
No.
I want to understand what are the risks, what are the
Yep.
opportunities. I follow a site called AI for Good. I want AI to be used for good in all cases, and I'm looking at how AI is being used for government and what the government is doing. They're massively hiring AI experts, and so I think we have to come to the table with this idea that we should not be left behind on this and that we should have some
Amen.
basic or general awareness about how we can use these tools to make us as individuals in whatever place we're contributing to more efficient. It makes us better, and that's the vein that I would challenge everyone to tap into.
I'm 100% on board with that, and that's been my mentality from the very beginning. Is I don't want to get left behind, but at the same time, if this can make me more efficient, if it can make me better at something, if it can open up a door that I might not otherwise have been able to walk through on my own with my skill set where it's at or my knowledge set where it's at, then I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm a big Apple guy, and I just watched the WWDC announcement here, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and you talked about using it as an assistant, and I see how that is going to be like when the new iOS comes out in the fall. Your smartphone is going to become an assistant in a whole new way. And so I totally get that side of things. Using it as a brain, I totally get that. I mean, that's what that's where I've been using it is filling in the blanks, or I'm really good at coming up with ideas or seeds of ideas, and to be able to use AI as a brainstorming buddy to help me take that to the next step, or what does this look like, or how could I build that out, or whatever. I think it's been really good, and so I always enjoy having conversations with people who understand that side of things, because I think particularly in voiceover right now, so much of the conversation is around a fear. And do we have to be aware of what is happening? Of course. Is there the possibility that AI is going to replace a certain amount of voice acting work? Yes. Is it going to take 100% of it? I don't think so. Are the voice actors who are embracing AI and using AI to deliver better service or become more efficient in their work, or whatever, are they going to have a better shot at longevity? I think probably that's true. So let me ask you, how do you respond to the voice actor? The argument, a lot of the argument right now is centralized around, we don't want this to replace us, and so we just shouldn't use it, because if we're using it, we might be using it in a way that replaces somebody else, or does a job that somebody else could have previously done. And so the idea is just avoid it. And avoiding it like that is not going to make it go away. But how do you respond to that person in a logical or rational way to see what's in front of them, or the opportunity that's in front of them?
Absolutely. So I've been very blessed in having voiceover work in the jobs that I have. So my professional field requires voiceovers. And
Mhm.
so my work has been primarily through the jobs I have. I'll set that up. So it's everything from e-learning to promos to global webinar intros, and it's within the context of my work. And so it's incumbent upon me to evaluate the systems so that I'm aware of it. If one, the client is interested in it, two, I need to know what's available
Mhm.
and what is the best tool for XYZ task. And so, in the position that I'm in, my readiness for AI has been within a context of a responsibility for trying to
Yeah.
understand the entire market, the paradigm of AI, everything from being early adopters and looking at cloning voices to finally landing on something to even testing it. And right now, I have a major project. And if you want to say, how did I use AI and how did I test it and where are we? The project was I pitched an idea for a 90 episode podcast. And obviously, if I'm going to pitch it, I want to be the voice of it.
Sure.
And I had to substantiate one, why do we need it? How can I be the expert doing it? how can I be the voice doing it? And I set up this proposal that was eventually accepted. So it's a 90 episode podcast. And I only have about 3.5 to 4 months to do it. And so within a mapping of this process, I tried to look at how can I use AI to assist my process to help me to be more efficient, but also to meet a very truncated time frame.
Yep.
And I want human involvement as much as I can have it. And so if I tell you the process and where did I use AI, first of all, 90 episodes is quite a lot.
Yep.
And so I used AI, again with an extensive prompt, to help me to generate 150 episode ideas.
Wow. Okay.
The 150 episode ideas were then curated by me. I got it down to about 115. And then the 115 was submitted to the project team, who then evaluated the 115, again, involving humans where possible.
Yep. Yep.
And we tweaked them and we updated them. We replaced some, but there was human involvement. We got it down to 90 episodes. That was episode titles. So it's everything from human design to how to motivate a team to how to use AI in your work to management decision making. It's 90 episodes for chiefs of party. That's probably not a familiar term. It's the CEO of a project. For example, my project is a $47 million project. And within this project is where the 90 episode podcast came up. So mapping out the process and where do we put AI in? So generation of titles are approved, and then we go into the script writing. This is where the 1,200 word prompt came in.
Yep.
Again, I spent about 4 hours on this prompt to make sure that it would give me between 50 and 75% draft that I would then go back in and say, well, at the Partnerships Incubator, we have, client meetings on Tuesday. I would add the flavor of the subject from my own experience, and then I would add sort of, personality to the script, and then finalize it as a human. Deliver the voiceover in English, have the post-production done. Final episode is now in English. Then the client comes back and says, well, can we do this in Spanish or French or Arabic? But before that, I hired 5 voiceover artists, people, no clones, to do the promos of the podcast. And also, we had 2 of them, promo 1, promo 2. And then we had social media posts that had about a 15 to 20 second promo, but a single social media post with a human voice and music. And then the intro and the outro, again, is human.
Yep.
Right. Then now the Spanish request came up. And so the client challenged me to clone my voice, which I did. I own it, I operate it, and it's within the platform of 11 labs. You've heard of them before.
Yep. Sure.
And no one else has access to it, so I apply it.
Yep.
It also means that I am looking at testing it. How do I get to the Spanish translation? I'm using human translators to take the English version, translating it to Spanish. I take that script in Spanish, put it in 11 labs, who then generates the Spanish version of my voice, and there's a podcast. And you might say, well, wow, that's quick. It's all done. No, it's not done, because now I'm dealing with AI, and I have to go back and QA/QC what the final deliverable is. And sometimes it could be talking, and I'm going to do it sort of as I talk. It would be talking like, nah. That just shows up, and you go, okay, well, where did that come from?
Yeah, what caused that? Yep.
Yeah. And then it would go into gibberish. And so you're still looking at having to edit whatever is given out as output and fix it. Like, it's never perfect.
The interesting thing on this is I think that there are 2 people that are going to listen to this right now, and there's a group of people who are going to listen and say, they're going to hear you say that you used AI to do the Spanish voiceover, and so it's going to make their argument of, well, AI is replacing voice actors. But then there's the group of people who are going to listen to this and hear to me, I just heard you tell me a story of AI job creation.
Yeah.
Because if there was not AI, this podcast wouldn't have existed, probably. You wouldn't have been able to create it the way that you did. And as a result of creating it, you were able to employ multiple people at different stages of the process. And so this is AI as job creation. But I do think there's going to be those two different groups of people who are going to look at it, one in a more positive way and one in the, oh, it took the job of the Spanish voice or whatever. But it's interesting to hear. Shoot, man, I'm going to start using AI to help me come up with some ideas for my podcast now. I mean, I have used it, I've brought in examples of, I'm bringing in a guest to speak on a particular subject, and I get it to help me to come up with some questions or brainstorm out some ideas or things of that nature. And it certainly opens my eyes to areas where an interview could go that I might not have previously thought of on my own, which I really like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, if you were to say, well, who's doing the intro and the outro for the Spanish version? We're hiring voice actors.
Mhm.
So I've got a Spanish, an Arabic, and a French voice actor lining up to
Nice.
do the intro and the outro. And we will have, for efficiency, for obviously purpose, the language versions. And we're starting off with Spanish. We're testing out the entire process. We hired someone to come on and manage or orchestrate the Spanish sort of leg of that process.
Okay.
And I'm right now testing the script. And sadly, the clone voice does not properly pronounce USAID in Spanish correctly. So I am testing phonetic descriptions, different ways to say it. Does it need a hyphen? Is it just words? Sure. And so it's not as easy or straightforward as something that you could attach fear to.
I
It
think
is
that's
a
the other part of
tool.
this. I think there's a
Yeah.
misconception that you can just take your script, drop it in, boom, I got a finished voiceover 12 seconds later. No, are we going to get there? Yeah, we're going to get there, but are we there yet? No, we're absolutely not there yet.
Mm-mm.
So of all the different LLMs that are out there, the large language models, you've got ChatGPT, obviously, Gemini, Claude, Jasper. There's a bunch of different ones that are out there. Do you have a preference, or do you use certain models for certain instances?
I try to test every one that comes across when I have the opportunity with a newsletter called Everyday AI. If you want to get a running start on learning about AI, this is the richest newsletter. If you only could read one, that's the one I would read. And it gives you industry insights, new tools, kinds of prompts to improve your productivity. Um, and so I'm all over the map in testing, I would tell you that.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I learned, there's another guy on LinkedIn. It's connected to my top one. His name is Gerald, Gerald, Solution Man, and his last name starts with an H. He
Okay.
does a monthly, it's like a 2.5 hour webinar with experts from all over the world. And my number one tool came from that learning, and
Okay.
it's called Poe.com,
I've
Poe.
I've heard of Poe. Yeah.
Yep. And Poe is an aggregator of AI tools. And
Yep.
so you would have everything from Dolly to individual chat bots that are created. I used one the other day, and it was a job chat bot that you put in the job, then your resume, and you ask it to write a cover letter. And so it evaluates it. You give the brain 2 pieces of data and you ask it to come up with a cover letter. And you might get something, you say, well, make it more professional or
Yep.
make it more conversational. And looking specifically at the prompts, again, you test them. And if you want to take it to the next level, I actually signed up for something called AI Staffs. And it allows me to create chatbots on a given subject. So one of the things I'm testing, not finished, but script evaluation, um, ideas for, let's say, your VOpreneur.com website. You could actually feed it everything that's on your website, your blogs, your business plan, your brand, and then use it as a VOpreneur brain.
Right.
But you can build it, and it's a tool that is very straightforward. It's a little on the expensive side, but like I said, I'm right in the middle of trying to test all these things to make sure that I'm keeping up with what is available. But
Sure.
Poe the aggregator, AI Staffs helps to, if you want to create your own, that's taking it to the next level.
Yep.
And then, obviously I'm exploring other kind of blockchain related AI kinds of things like OpenSea, which is a new, fairly new NFT non-fungible token platform where you can sell art, of which I'm using AI to help me to do that.
Cool. So let's talk about some specific use cases from the voiceover side of things, because obviously we're speaking to a group of voice actors right now, and the ones that are maybe interested in trying to embrace some of these tools. I know for me, and I mentioned earlier, like primarily where I would say I use it is under the umbrella of brainstorming, right? I've got an idea that I need help flushing out, or I'm trying to narrow down a wide topic, or I'm trying to widen out a narrow topic or something like that. And I've found that to be quite helpful. But talk about some of the different ways that you are using ChatGPT or, whatever tool. Talk about some of the specific use cases where you're using it in your business, your voiceover business.
Yeah, I think I struggle with coming up with branded social media.
Okay. Yeah.
And I came up with a couple of ideas. I am an ambassador of kindness, just being kind. And I wanted to create something called the Kindness Series. And I was able to use ChatGPT to help me to flesh out the social media series itself, the purpose, what am I seeking to accomplish, who's the audience. And so it helped me to write a little mini business plan for a social media series. A second one that I did was called Manifest Your Greatism, and it's about having a positive attitude about what gifts you've been given and what you can bring to the earth, how you can be your best and, the strongest you can be and what you offer to others. And so those two series, I use ChatGPT to help me build the business plan, not formal business plan, but just the thinking about what am I seeking to accomplish here. Now, taking it a step further, I wanted to use ChatGPT. Back then it's 4, I think it's 4.0 right now, the newest version. I said, help me to create the text for the posts. And I generated, I think, 200 ideas and then curated those and collated what was there. And then one new sort of tip and trick, canva.com, Canva.
Yes, very familiar with Canva.
I always call it my like secret weapon.
Yep.
That
you can
and
do some
Fiverr,
amazing things there.
Yeah. They're my secret weapon. Well, I learned the other day a new tool, and that is if I go to ChatGPT, I'll define the process. Help me to come up with manifest your greatism sayings. And then I take those sayings, I ask ChatGPT to put it in a spreadsheet. So column 1 would be the number, column 2 would be the message. Always listen to the little voice in your heart, that kind of thing. So 1 through 100, simple spreadsheet. I save it as a CSV file, and then I bring it into Canva. Before I set up the bulk create in their new AI system, I create a stable design, and I have to ask myself, what about that design is stable? The title, the marks in the title, the fact that there's going to be a photo or video after, like in the background. Where the quote is sitting is a stable part. The quote itself is the programmed part.
Sure. Okay.
My web address is the stable part. So I try to set up what is a stable first page in Canva.
Okay.
And then the bulk create that now has the message, I load it into Canva as a bulk create, hit go, and it creates 100 social media posts. Do I have to tweak it? Yes. Some words, some sayings are too long. So I have to go back and make some adjustments. but I can create it. Now, the other part is having the time to post it all.
But
But at
having
least
the
you can
posts, I
build it.
mean, having the posts is the biggest thing for some people, right? I mean, look, if you surveyed a group of voice actors why they don't use social media, one of the top 3 answers is going to be, I don't have ideas, or I don't have time to create ideas, or like, and this solves all of those things. It's a really great example of using AI. Now, I'm curious, when you said you go through and you curate all of these posts. So I've used it to help me brainstorm out content for social media in the past. I've never just taken anything copy and paste. I've always been able to take what it gives me and be like, I can run with that, or I can expand on that, or whatever. And so I'm using it so that ultimately it gets written and posted in my voice, basically. Are you tweaking things that way, or are you at a point, because obviously the better your prompts get, the better your outputs get? Are you at a point where you're getting content that you can just take and be like, just roll with it just the way it comes out?
I would first say that it depends on the stakes of what I'm writing.
Sure. Okay. That's fair.
And if it's an executive letter that's, going to be in an annual report, the stakes are pretty high.
Totally different ball
So,
game. Yep.
yeah. If it's a social media post where, I would say I have to tweak almost everything, like nothing really comes out perfect. There's always some additional effort to it, but I saved a minimum of 60 to 75% effort in getting to go.
Sure.
To move it beyond go, I think you always have to review it, quality control it, make sure that it's in your voice. The amount of effort for each of those 3 things depends on the stakes of whatever you're going to deliver.
So where are we using AI, or where can we use AI in a day-to-day workflow scenario? Have you got areas where you're using it where it's become your, you said assistant earlier. Are there things that you're using it for in that way?
Well, I can give you a very specific example.
Okay.
In my voiceover demos, my 2 favorite, the ones that I love, are for Subaru and for Lindt chocolate.
Okay.
They're my favorite. So I thought I'm going to do a blog article for my She Can Talk blog. And I was thinking, wow, I can use AI to put together a mashup between Subaru and Lindt. So I went on Poe. I signed into the Dolly part of it, the photo
Mhm.
generator, and asked it to create a mashup of Subaru and Lindt chocolate. So it made me a chocolate covered Subaru with chocolate hanging around the edges of the picture, and I loved it. Was it right the first time? Absolutely not. I had to tweak. If I go
Sure.
back and look at the sequence of outputs for that particular task, it may have been 6 or 7 where the car's not right, or Subaru spelled wrong, or Lindt chocolate is not showing in the right place, or the chocolate looks weird. Yeah, so about 7 before I got to the one I liked, but I really loved it. The one that I finally used. It's on my blog. You can go and take a look at it. But that's an example where it's very practical. Help me to illustrate my story.
That's the one thing for me where I mean, I'm a huge fan of Canva, and I've used some different royalty-free sites for stuff in the past, but every once in a while I've got a picture in my head of the graphic or the image that I want to go with a particular post or whatever, and I can spend 8 hours searching all the sites trying to find that specific graphic and not find it. Or I can go in and, I've played around with Firefly a little bit, and I've played around with Canva a little bit, and a couple of these different tools, and I can type it out and get it to create pretty much exactly what I had in my head, as long as I can communicate it clearly through the prompt. And it is pretty incredible technology. Although I will say all of these image generators seem to really struggle with human hands. That's the one
Well,
thing I've noticed over and over and over again. You see, whenever I see an image that I think is an AI generated image, I'm like, look at the hands, and I look at the hands. There's like 6 fingers or something like, or 2 fingers are really way shorter than another, or something like that. But it's still pretty amazing what you can do with that technology.
yeah, let's talk about bias.
Yeah.
Let's talk about bias. And your hand example
Yep.
made me think about the following. There is bias,
Hmm.
and I've experienced it. I, as you can see, am a full-figured woman, and in my prompts, I have tested the term full-figured.
Hmm.
I have used large, fat, big,
Yep.
and it generates Barbie dolls. It
Always. Yeah.
generates, you know, um, what do you call those things? Chopstick size legs.
Yep.
It doesn't know what full figure means. Like it only uses mostly model. I'll give you an example. Recently, working on a digital art project, and I asked it, it's celebrating women throughout the world. And I'm doing it in my VO brand colors, trying to create a similar property to
Okay.
showcase the fact that I'm a creative who has a very gigantic toolkit that includes voiceover, book writing, art creation, etc.
Sure.
And so I wanted to match my brand identity as a voice actor. So it means I'm including my 2 main colors are dark teal and orange. And so this art show that I'm building is around that brand. So I'll start off with that. And as I am testing these prompts and trying to get it to do different sizes of women, it struggles with that. And
Right.
so there's bias. Now, what I've found is if I'm asking for a woman from Ghana or Nigeria or Ethiopia, those are examples where the skin tone of those 3 countries are different. Nigeria is more in the like black blue skin tone. Ghana is more in the brownish. And then Ethiopia is more in the, now there are variations. I'm making a generalization
Sure.
here,
Sure.
but Ethiopian is more the yellow brown. And I get women from Brazil, and I'm finding that the skin tones are coming out pretty good.
Hmm.
But as I do this and as I, try different things, I'm learning where it's missing the mark
Yep.
too. So I can understand the limitations. And if someone says to me, Donna, we want to use a clone voice in Spanish, or we want to try to do this, I have an idea of how to make it successful and where the limitations are. And I think that's an important part of this equation is understanding what you can't do and what you can do and how it can make your own workflows better.
Every day you hear another story of AI gone wrong, whether it's a hallucination or just a clear flaw in how it was trained based on content or filters, limitations, et cetera, that was put on it to show a bias, whatever that bias may be. And it's one of the things that we certainly have to be careful of. But that's also another reason why, for me in particular, like I said, I'm not using it to generate the content. I'm using it to get me down the path, and then I'll take it from there type deal. And I think that's where where a lot of the use cases are. Now I know we've had some back and forth through a Facebook group about some of the different ways that you're using AI. And one of the things that you had mentioned, you specifically talked about using AI to add value to what you offer your clients. And I was just curious, what does that look like?
Well, the client for the podcast is the perfect example.
Sure.
When he said, we want to do 90 episodes in 3 different languages and it needs to be done before July the 19th.
Well, that's not an impossible task at all. Would also like you to build a rocket ship to Mars by the end of the year. Like,
Yeah. And, whatever way that I can bring it in to improve what I'm doing, I always test it. It's there, it's open. I have it open 100% of my time at my desk, and I use it to augment whatever I'm doing. It could be to, something as simple as help me to write a letter about a resignation or something like that, or help me to evaluate a script. helped me to build characters. One of the things that I used it in the early stages was to look at if I'm going into the booth and I have a character catalog, which I'm building, I can look at it. It says Jane. She's from Louisiana and she owns a bakery, and it's a character that I can come in and use
I love that.
within an audition. And it gives me a jump start instead of me going, okay, who am I talking to? What did I do before now?
That's a
And
really
so
cool idea.
I'm building out all the categories of what just happened 10 minutes before I came in the booth. Can you describe that? And so looking at all the different things I would think about, this kind of started back in May of last year when I was doing the animation course with Such a Voice, and I was looking at how can I maximize my character development. And so I started looking at using AI to inform the process,
Yep.
and it helped me to test out different voices. Most recently, and this is what I'm really excited about, is I can take a picture of something and put it into, I have to get the name of it and get back to you, but it's a tool that you can upload a picture and ask it to tell you the story of the picture. You can provide the
Wow.
name of the person. Let's say it's Marc Scott. Um, and the picture is you sitting at your desk behind the microphone. And I I inform in the prompt the parameters that I'd like for it to stay within. It's going to be 350 words. I'm able to draw storytelling. And if you create a dolly photo and it's based on a prompt and it's based on your thinking, but you want to carry it a little bit further, is you take that post and go and put it in the storytelling app, and it will help you to write another blog article.
That's so cool.
And so you can dissect all of your VO processes and say, how can I add value in each of the phases of the process?
Man, this feels like this is like the new rabbit hole, right? Social media was the rabbit hole. You go on Instagram, you start to scroll, the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, and you're like, where did my 2 hours go? I feel like I could do the same thing with some of this AI stuff and start to play around with it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I just spent 2 hours, working on a prompt or playing around with an idea or a concept. Now, we talked about bias, which I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's important to understand. But I also think that AI isn't the only one that has bias. I think as humans, we very often do as well. And we come up with an idea or we come up with a plan and we get ourselves moving in one direction. We get, tunnel vision or whatever it is. And one of the things that you had said that I thought was really cool, and I'd love to hear you talk about this a little bit more. Talk about how you use AI to give you the cons of an idea. Because if you want to talk about bias, this sounds like a really interesting way to maybe identify our own if we're moving on a particular path and seeing the other side.
Yeah, you present the idea and you say, why is this a bad idea?
Nobody would think to do that. I mean, I wouldn't have thought to do that anyway. Obviously, you thought to do it, but I'm like, that's so interesting that you would actually type it out. You just, here's what my idea is, here's what my concept is, whatever. Tell me why this won't work, or tell me why this is a bad idea, or give me 5 reasons why this might fail, or whatever. And it can certainly open you up to thinking about it from a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
I love it. That's
Well,
a good one.
I think another consideration here is looking at how can ChatGPT or any of the other different apps. I do want to mention under ChatGPT, the free version, so you don't have to pay the monthly version. They have a new, um, what do they call it? Like an app within an app situation,
Mhm.
like an add-on.
Okay.
And the add-on, the basic level is free. It's called AIPRM, I believe, and it's an add-on to ChatGPT. They have built a battery of prompts that you can test and use that can influence your productivity. So everyone's process is different, but I think as the tools grow, and I'm a fan of the free ones until you have to pay.
Yep.
And the Chat GPT with the AI PRM it amps it up. It sort of gasses it up. The second thing I would say is that we've been using AI without it being called AI with Siri.
Yes. Yes.
With Siri. Like Siri's
It's
been around.
there. That's the thing I think that is so funny about all of this is we've been using it in our daily lives for years, and we were never upset about it when it was sorting out our Netflix recommendations or building us a Spotify playlist or, Siri, Alexa, all of these different types of assistants. But when it came out and we labeled it, all of a sudden we're like, wait, what's going on? Why? And that's a totally valid point.
Yeah, with ChatGPT, I'll give you an example. I've been trying to keep up as a learner. Like if
Mhm.
you I'm strategics at first and I'm learner second in the Clifton Strengths Finders. And so I honor that part of myself where I want to learn about things. And
Yep.
I was joking with my husband the other day. He goes, "What have you been doing all weekend?" I said, "Well, let me get Siri on and I'm going to ask a question that is the nature of a learning path that I took this weekend." And here's the question. "Hey Siri, can you tell me which app do you want to listen to this on?"
Everybody's is going off now too.
Yeah.
I'm like listening in the background for mine.
So you know who I'm talking to, but I won't say it
Yes.
again.
Yes.
And this was the question. This was at the dinner table for a joke.
Yep.
I said, "Can you tell me the best blockchain technology that has the lowest gas fees for minting a non-fungible token and it's associated with an online digital marketplace like OpenSea?" And my husband said, "What?"
What language are you speaking right now?
But there's SIRI
Yep.
standing by, ready to give you 10 research articles, of which I tapped into because that was a real question that I needed to have answered as I looked to do a pricing structure for my VO branded digital art series.
So you're from a voiceover standpoint, you're using it on this art project. You've used it to help you build a character library, which that's a really smart use case. That's something I would have never thought of. You mentioned that you're using it to help you with social media content and coming up with the ideas and the content. Is there any other areas where you're using it specifically in voiceover right now where you're like, huh, this is like, since I discovered this is amazing, or this has saved me so much time or made me so much more efficient or better or adds value in a different way?
I think ideas for blog articles,
Yeah.
and it's almost a tell me more about this subject. If I go and look at right now the number of draft blog articles that I have for my blog, I don't know, it might be 12 in draft form because I'll ask it a question, something that perplexes me. So here's an example, a train of thought in auditions. You know, we have to audition.
Yep.
Or we have to do something to get business, whether or not it's auditions.
Yep.
You know that paradigm typically requires work in doing auditions. Now, the other
Yep.
day I heard someone tell me that they did over 350 auditions before they got their first job.
Okay.
Okay. I look at that from a process standpoint. I offer no judgment to those numbers, but I look at it from a process standpoint. And I say to myself, first of all, I don't have time to do 345 auditions. Honestly, if I can do 2 a day, I'm lucky. And so what does that mean? I'm not spending time on something that yields little. I want to spend time on something that yields a lot.
Yeah.
So it means I'm looking at my time as an investment.
Yes.
I have got to put this in the place that yields the biggest return. And if you tell me I need to be on 4 audition sites and go and do 20 auditions a day, I cannot do that.
Yep.
Because in my opinion, and this might be hard to sort of hear, but it's a waste of time. And so I have to find other ways to make the magic happen.
Yep.
And the other ways are going to come from either ideas from your marketing course, for example, um, they're going to be a different effort.
Yep.
And so I'm looking at the question, Mark, if all of us have the same amount of time, how are we using that time to bring the most benefit to our circumstance? And I felt sad when I heard that 350 only got one job out of it. I felt sad as just like a reaction because we all have the same amount of time, and what we do with it and what it yields is a question we need to ask ourselves every single day. How is
Absolutely.
that connected to AI? AI helps me to be better with my time,
Yep.
which means that I'm working on a spot right now for a local nonprofit, and I met the person in person, like it's a personal interaction. And so I'm working on that spot. That was efficient. I'm gonna have a deliverable. I didn't have to spend, 20 hours auditioning to get a $249 job.
Yep.
So time is our resource, and how we use it, it is connected to AI, and it is connected to how do I maximize the time that I have available to grow my business and to create awareness about what I do and to actually get in the booth and do work that is a deliverable and not just a chance at a deliverable.
Absolutely. Makes sense to me. So if all of this, all the whole AI conversation primarily revolves around prompt engineering, whether you're using it to brainstorm ideas, create an image, come up with a podcast, write a blog, whatever, it all comes back to prompt engineering. And the better that you are on the prompt engineering side, the better results that you're going to ultimately be able to get out of the AI. So you mentioned the Everyday AI newsletter, which that's one that I'm not on, so I will be subscribing to that one. What else can we do to get better at prompt engineering?
So I'm going to rewind back to what I was talking about earlier on mindset. Prompt engineering sounds like a big deal. It's
Yeah.
not. The only reason I did it was to jumpstart my learning and, I mean, essentially to be a badass in the area, but moving on. Um, Learning how to do it and prompt engineering as a term is, put that on the shelf. Let's
Yep.
talk about practicality.
Okay.
You can, and as I've done it twice. I went on Fiverr and I typed in, like, sell me some prompts. Sell
Okay.
me some prompts that you've tested. And so I actually purchased, I want to say it was, I don't know, $8.99 or 20, under $20. And it was 10,000 prompts just to see what people are
What?
putting out
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
And it's everything from marketing to SEO. It's already been written. So I just want to reduce the complexity and the baggage that could
Sure.
be coming with the term prompt engineer. I mean, it's essentially words that you put together to make somebody do something. And
Yep.
you consider it, if you were the AI and I'm talking to you in person,
Yep.
it's what do I need to tell you to give me what I want?
Asking
That
better
is
questions.
that's prompt engineering.
Yeah.
And I would also say a good tool is if you have an idea where you feel like your prompt is weak, then you can go, I think this prompt is weak. Maybe you could ask me a few questions to help to inform a better prompt. And then, oh, by the way, you write the prompt after you get the answers to the question.
So you
And
make the
so,
AI do the prompt engineering for you.
exactly, exactly. So let's
Nice.
demystify this and say, do you want to improve your work life? Do you want to improve efficiencies? Do you want to test ideas? Do you want to have a thought partner? That was the number 4. I didn't get to it, but it's a thought partner for me.
Yeah.
And if
Yep.
I go to ChatGPT and pull out all the prompts that I've done, it's everything from help me to develop a color palette that represents a sophisticated voice. If I'm talking really close like that and trying to create a certain mood and I want to sound sophisticated,
Mhm.
that is a label that needs
Yep.
color.
Yep.
And so I interacted with ChatGPT to look at color palettes that are associated with the 150 terms, there are probably more, but I tried to be selective, that are used to describe a voice. You might be quirky and you talk like that all the time,
Yep.
and so quirky would be your label.
Yep.
And so I'm using AI to help me to build out a color catalog for voice actors. And you go and you look in the catalog. If someone says your voice of God, there's 3 color palettes associated with voice of God, and then there's evidence of what those colors look like. Well, the evidence is a website and it's branded materials. And you say, "Well, where did you get that?" I used AI. There's a site called
Okay.
paletemaker.com, and you can test colors. You can test your current brand colors. And let's say you want to add a 6th color to your palette. You can test that within Palette Maker, and it will generate, I don't know, 100 different brand deliverables
Wow.
with your colors. Everything from a business card to a website to a flyer to a pattern. Let's say you wanted to generate, you have your color palette, you wanted to generate a pattern that would be a secondary signature to your VO brand. You can take your brand colors and generate a pattern that you could actually make shirts with. And it's with your brand colors.
That's cool.
So I would say ChatGPT is a tool, but there's thousands of others. And almost everything you think about doing, the startup gurus have also thought about it, and
Yeah,
they
it's
probably
true.
created a tool on how to do it.
The
So
possibilities are
yeah,
absolutely endless in that
yeah.
regard. This has been absolutely amazing. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to play around with AI in some different ways now. So, parting thought, what's a question that I didn't ask you that I should have, or a piece of advice that you would like to be able to share, or something we need to know or understand that you want to be able to pass on?
Yeah, let me just get to. I knew you were going to ask me that question. So right now I'm reading an AI book. It's actually I want to say she's been called the mother of AI. Her name is Fei Fei Li,
Okay.
FEI hyphen FEILI.
Okay.
It's an amazing personal story about how she was driven to not just be a computer scientist, but to look at what's going on inside the brain. How do we replicate a brain? And I would say I would recommend that book if you're interested in learning more about sort of the background and the history and her influential role
Okay.
in AI first.
I will be
So,
heading to Amazon after this to order that one up.
a quote that I came across that I thought would be useful is that the following, and the first name of the guy is Chamath, and I know I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm probably not even going to say it, but I'll spell it Palihapitiya. Polyhapatia. Anyway,
Your guess is as
he's
good as mine on that
yeah,
one.
he is the CEO of an organization called Social Capital.
Okay.
Here's what he said. I will give him full credit. AI will likely be one of the largest drivers of productivity improvements over the coming decade and will upend trillions of dollars of economic value. And I'll close with that to say I'm in a conversation right now with ChatGPT connected to that idea and how we look at and do auditions. And so I'm in a deep conversation with connecting time investment for the most outcome to be continued.
Episode part 2 we'll have to do. We'll revisit this like a year from now or something and find out where we're at and all the different ways that we've been able to use AI to make us better, more efficient, provide more value, whatever the case may be. But I will fully admit that in the beginning I was very skeptical. I know I'm still an early adopter, but I mean I didn't like jump out and get ChatGPT right away. I was pushing back against it for a while, but after a few months, I guess it went through kind of that first half of 2023 when the joke was like every stock or every company that was when they were announcing their quarterly results, it was like the drinking game was take a shot every time they mentioned the word AI, and you'll be dead from alcohol poisoning by the end of the annual report or whatever. And you start to see how companies are embracing it, how it's impacting the stock market, economy and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't want to get left behind. I need
Exactly.
to understand some of this stuff. And as I started to play with it more, I started realizing like I'm doing more. I'm doing more in less time.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, for me, I got 4 kids. I'll give me all the time that I can have. Like I will take it all back if I can spend an extra half an hour a day with my kids or whatever. And so
Mhm.
just looking at it from that perspective and adopting from that perspective, it's been a big game changer for me. So it's been really fun to have this conversation and learn even more ideas of ways that I might be able to embrace this and put it into my voiceover business. So Donna, thank you so much. I am truly grateful for this completely selfishly motivated interview to pick your brain and learn some things. And I know there's some others that are going to listen. They're going to benefit from it as well.
Absolutely glad to be here, and I certainly will call you up in probably 6 to 9 months and let you know what else has been cooking, but it's been fun, I love it, and you can go as fast as or as hard as you want in this learning journey, but I would say that feeling about not being left behind,
Yep.
it's real and
Yep.
it's important, and
Yep.
I think as professionals, we have to know what is available and
Yep.
how we can take what's available to make our outputs and processes as great and as efficient as possible. Thanks for having me on.